So have you heard about this new movie that's making waves?
Yeah.
Critics are throwing all sorts of labels at it, masterpiece, tearjerker, and, everything in between. It seems like the big hook is that it's based on a true story.
Yeah. Those always seem to grab people, don't they? Real life, you know? It makes you wonder, how could all this really happen?
I know, right? And this one, it's full of drama and emotion, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The YouTube reviewers, they're all over the visuals. They're stunning,
Hmm.
and the performances are powerful. They say you got to see it, especially if you like a good cry.
Hmm.
But then there's the New York Times review, which calls it, get ready for this, a meditative exploration of memory and losses.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Everyone seemed to agree that it's a powerful film, but they're really having different experiences with it.
Huh. That is fascinating. Sounds like the movie has some depth, you know? Like it's complex, makes you want to, I don't know, dig a little deeper and find the story behind the story, you know?
Buckle up, because this movie is based on a biographical book. And today we're taking a deep dive into that true story, the one that inspired it all.
I'm ready. Let's unravel this thing together.
All right, so the book kicks off in a surprisingly relatable way. It starts with the author's toddler son, and get this, he's obsessed with belly buttons.
Belly buttons. You don't hear that every day. That's a unique way to start a biography for sure. I'm intrigued.
Right. He describes how his son, he would want to see everyone's belly button, like fascinated by this little, I don't know, detail of the human body,
Yeah.
right? That's funny, but the author uses this, kind of silly, insignificant childhood memory as a way to jump into exploring the whole nature of memory itself, like how these early experiences shape, how we see the world, ourselves, all that.
That's where it starts to get really interesting. By connecting something as simple as a childhood anecdote to something as complex as memory, he's kind of hinting at a theme, isn't he? A theme that runs throughout the book. It's about the power of memory, especially when you're dealing with loss and trauma.
Yeah, and that leads us right into the heart of the story, the author's mother, Eunice Paiva. She was an amazing woman, a well-known lawyer who handled all sorts of cases. We're talking high-profile divorces, international human rights issues, the whole gamut.
Wow, she sounds like a powerhouse, tackling so many different worlds with passion. It makes you wonder what kind of experiences, early on shaped her into such a force.
You're spot on to wonder that, because the book does go back into Eunice's early life. The author talks about how even as a young girl, his mom had this sharp intellect and a strong sense of justice. It seems like those qualities, they were always there, just waiting to, I don't know, to blossom.
It's amazing how some traits are visible so early, like a preview of the person someone will become.
Yeah,
Makes you think about, nature versus nurture, how both shape us.
totally. But sadly, as the book goes on, we find out that Eunice is diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh.
Well, a tough turn of events, especially when you consider how much she valued knowledge and intellect, throughout her life.
It's hard to hear. It makes you realize how fragile our minds can be, even the most brilliant ones. And it sets the stage for I don't know, a really moving journey as the author explores his mother's life, her legacy, while also, dealing with her decline.
There's this really powerful scene in the book where the author and his sister, they're with Eunice in court for her legal interdiction. So everyone's on the same page. Interdiction is when someone is, declared incapable of handling their own affairs because of illness, like Alzheimer's.
Got it.
So in this scene, Eunice, she's already showing signs, of Alzheimer's, but she's still aware enough to understand what's happening and to advocate for herself.
Wow.
She wants to make sure that her rights and her voice are respected, even as, her cognitive abilities are fading.
That's incredible. It shows her strength, her commitment to justice, not just for clients, but for herself. And it brings up some important questions, How do we protect the rights, the dignity of people facing cognitive decline? How do we make sure they're heard?
Exactly. And this fight to maintain control, even when faced with such a debilitating disease, it really speaks volumes about Eunice's character, doesn't it?
It does. This legal battle, it's a thread that keeps coming back in the book, right? It's like a miniature version of her larger struggle for justice, both personally and professionally.
It definitely is. And as we go deeper into Eunice's story, you'll see how this theme of fighting for what's right shows up in every part of her life.
I'm hooked. Eunice's life, it was anything but ordinary.
Oh, you can say that again.
Yeah.
Now, alongside Eunice's story, the author also weaves in his own childhood experiences, and music plays a big role. He talks about this charming memory where Sammy Davis Jr., the legendary entertainer, he soothed his baby son. It sparked a love for jazz in their family.
Oh, that's lovely. Speaks to the power of music, connecting across generations, creating lasting memories.
Yeah. And then he contrasts this with his own early musical memories, things like theme songs from old TV shows, you know. He even encourages the reader, you, to think about your earliest musical memories, those ones that transport you back to a specific time and place.
It's a smart way to engage the reader, making them part of the exploration of memory.
Right. And it highlights how music, it has this power, you know. It can evoke emotions and transport us back to specific moments in time, shaping our personal narratives.
Makes you realize that our memories, they're not just isolated events, but threads woven into this big tapestry, right? Connecting us to our past, to our families, even to our cultural heritage.
Beautifully put. And, you know, those early memories, they're not always happy ones, are they? Yeah, the author shares this kind of a traumatic memory from a childhood party in Rio. He was the only one dressed as a caipira, which is a traditional farmer from the countryside. And because of that, he was ostracized. You know, it wasn't a Rio tradition. He felt like an outsider.
That's a tough one. It shows how cultural differences, even within the same country, can lead to, I don't know, feelings of isolation, being excluded,
Yeah.
especially for kids who are still, figuring out who they are.
It really does. It's a reminder that even things that seem small, they can have this huge impact on our sense of belonging,
Yeah.
our self-worth.
It makes you wonder if that experience, feeling like an outsider, being different, did it foreshadow some of the challenges Eunice faced later, as she fought against the norms of her time, the political and social ones?
That's a sharp observation. Because Eunice's life, it was really entwined with the turbulent political scene in Brazil during the 60s and 70s. Her husband, Eunice Paiva, was a congressman who was outspoken against the military dictatorship that, that ruled the country at the time.
This adds a whole new dimension to the story, doesn't it? It connects personal struggles to the larger historical context, the political turmoil in Brazil. It makes you think about how individual lives are often shaped by forces that are beyond our control, like the currents of history.
And sometimes those currents can be, well, very dangerous. Because of his outspokenness, Eunice Paiva became a target. And the book goes into detail about the increasing climate of fear and repression in Brazil at that time.
It's a reminder of how easily democracies can crumble, and the devastating consequences of authoritarian regimes. They silence dissent and persecute anyone who challenges them.
It was a dark chapter in Brazil's history. And the book, it doesn't shy away from the harsh realities of living under a dictatorship.
And in the middle of all this political chaos, Eunice's personal story takes this dramatic turn. And in the middle of all this political chaos, Eunice's personal story takes this dramatic turn.
It does. Before Rubens was arrested, there's this account from the journalist Antonio Chiaro who met with Eunice. She was, well, obviously worried, but she was still hopeful that Rubens would be, released soon. He even described seeing her swimming in Buzios after a government official told her that Rubens was safe.
It's a painful contrast, isn't it? This image of her finding some peace in the ocean while the reality of her husband's situation is, unfolding behind the scenes. It speaks to how these authoritarian regimes operate. They use misinformation and manipulation to create this false sense of hope while they continue their oppressive agenda.
And then the unthinkable happens. Rubens disappears.
This is a turning point in the story, isn't it? Eunice and her kids are thrown into a world of uncertainty, fear. The disappearance becomes this source of immense trauma, and it fuels Eunice's pursuit of truth, of justice. It's a story that resonates with so many families who have gone through the agonizing pain of forced disappearances, the unanswered questions, the endless search for answers.
It's a heavy topic, and the book doesn't try to sugarcoat the emotional toll it took on Eunice and her kids. For years, they lived in limbo, clinging to the hope that Rubens was still alive while also facing that terrifying possibility that he was gone.
It really explores the impact of forced disappearance, not just on the person who vanishes, but on the loved ones they leave behind. They grapple with the ambiguity, the trauma. It highlights the cruelty of these acts. They aim to silence dissent by erasing individuals and leaving their families in this constant state of anguish.
It's truly heartbreaking. After 25 years of this agonizing uncertainty, a new law is passed, and Eunice is finally legally declared a widow. The book describes this powerful scene where she embraces the former Brazilian president and a general at a ceremony honoring victims of the dictatorship.
That's a loaded image, isn't it? It
Yeah.
captures the complexity of what it's like after a dictatorship, dealing with personal loss, but also the need for the nation to kind of reckon with its past. Eunice embracing both the president, representing the return to democracy, and the general, a symbol of the regime that took her husband. It says so much about forgiveness, the search for justice in the midst of all this pain and oppression.
It's a moment that, well, that leaves you with more questions than answers, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. Makes you think about the long and difficult path towards healing and reconciliation, both on a personal level and a national level.
As Eunice is navigating this path, her life takes another turn. The family moves to Sao Paulo, and Eunice, she throws herself into her work, becoming a powerful advocate for social justice.
It's like she channeled her grief, her anger into a force for good, using her platform, her skills to fight for those who were marginalized, who didn't have a voice.
Yeah, exactly. And there's this interesting detail about Eunice. She was making her own blended whiskey to keep up appearances and to save money.
Huh.
It shows how resourceful she was, adaptable. She could
Right.
find these creative solutions to the challenges life threw at her.
That little detail really does say a lot about her. She was determined to maintain this image, this strength, this resilience, even when things were tough.
Yeah.
There's also a hint of, I don't know, a little rebellion there, right? Like refusing to let circumstances dictate her choices.
I love that interpretation. It shows how even these small details can reveal so much about a person. And as we dig deeper into Eunice's life in Sao Paulo, you'll see even more of that strength, that determination shining through.
I'm ready for the next chapter of this incredible story.
So,
Tell me more about Eunice's journey and how she used her voice to fight for what's right.
so she became a champion for a lot of social causes, especially indigenous rights. Her passion for their cause, it was really personal. It echoed her earlier fight for her husband's freedom.
That's a powerful connection. It seems like her personal experiences, the loss, the injustice, it fueled her commitment to fighting for the rights of others.
And this commitment, it took her to some, well, unexpected places. Remember the journalist who met with Eunice before Rubin's arrest?
Antonio Collado.
Yeah. Years later, he would write a fictionalized account of Rubin's disappearance, a novel that helped keep the story alive and raise awareness about the regime's atrocities.
That's interesting. So even though Eunice wasn't directly involved in the writing of this novel, her story, her struggle, it inspired others who were fighting for justice and truth.
Exactly. It shows how personal narratives can have this ripple effect, inspiring people to take action and shaping how we understand these complicated historical events. Now, while Eunice is fighting for the rights of others,
Mhm.
her own past is about to come back into focus.
This is where the story takes another turn, right? The author, he starts his own quest to uncover the truth about what happened to his father.
You got it. And what he discovers is, well, it's shocking and heartbreaking. But before we get into that, let's take a moment to appreciate the amazing woman at the center of this story.
Eunice Paiva is truly inspiring. Her strength, her resilience, her unwavering pursuit of justice, it's remarkable. Her story reminds us that even when faced with unimaginable loss and adversity, the human spirit can endure, it can find purpose and make a difference in the world.
Beautifully said. Now, let's see what the author discovers as he digs into the mystery of his father's disappearance.
I'm on the edge of my seat. This deep dive just keeps getting more and more intriguing.
So the author, he sets out to uncover the truth about his father's disappearance. Where does this investigation lead him?
Well, it takes him on a long and winding road, full of dead ends and whispers and bits and pieces of information. He starts by researching the history of the dictatorship. He really immerses himself in the dark side of that era.
He's looking at official documents, court records, newspaper articles, trying to piece together like the political landscape that led to his father's arrest.
Yeah, like he's become a detective,
Right.
right? Meticulously sifting through the past, trying to reconstruct a crime that was hidden, covered up.
Exactly. And as he gets deeper, he uncovers this web of deceit and brutality. He learns about the systematic torture, how they used it to silence dissent, the secret prisons where they held political prisoners, and the chilling stories of those who just vanished. No trace.
It's a stark reminder of what can happen when power goes unchecked, right? When those in authority abuse their positions to crush any opposition, any dissent.
It's a chilling reality check, isn't it? And for the author, this isn't just history, it's personal.
Hmm.
He's not just reading about it, he's confronting the possibility that his father, his own father, endured these things.
It must have been incredibly difficult for him emotionally, reliving those traumatic events, facing the potential horrors that his father may have experienced.
Absolutely. As he pieces together this puzzle, he starts to uncover specific details about his father's case. The names of the individuals who were involved in his arrest, in the interrogation, the locations where he was held, and the chilling accounts from other prisoners who actually witnessed his father's ordeal.
This shift, right, going from this general historical research to these very specific details about his father, it must have been a turning point for him. It
Hmm.
brings the horror into sharp focus. It's not just this abstract idea of political repression anymore. It's the stark reality of his father's suffering.
Yeah, it definitely does. And as these details come to light, so do the truth about what happened to Rubens Paiva. It's a slow and painful process, but bit by bit, the author uncovers what really happened to his father.
This is where things take an even darker turn, I imagine. What does he find out?
He uncovers a series of confessions, testimonies from former political prisoners, military documents that reveal the gruesome details of his father's final days.
Yeah.
He learns that Rubens was tortured, subjected to unimaginable cruelty, and ultimately killed by the regime.
That's devastating. After all those years of not knowing, to finally have confirmation of his death, it must have been just a crushing blow for him and his family.
It was. The book describes the moment when the author and his siblings, they receive their father's death certificate. It's a moment of just profound sorrow, a reckoning with the truth that they always suspected but hoped wasn't true.
I can only imagine the range of emotions they must have felt, the grief, the anger, maybe even some sense of closure, but also, this renewed determination to seek justice for their father.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that determination, it really comes through in the book. The author, he doesn't just lay out the facts, he names names. He exposes the regime's tactics and reveals who was complicit, the individuals and institutions, in his father's death.
It's a powerful way to hold people accountable. He refuses to let those who are responsible remain anonymous. He's using his voice, his platform, to ensure that they're held to account, even all these decades later.
And this pursuit of justice, it becomes a driving force for him. He talks about the legal actions being taken against those involved in his father's death, the specific people who are implicated, his hopes for a resolution.
It reminds us that the fight for justice, it's a marathon, not a sprint, isn't it? It requires dedication, this refusal to let the past just fade away. It's a testament to the power of truth, to challenge impunity even years after the crime.
Absolutely. And while this legal battle is unfolding, the author's also wrestling with what it all means for him personally. He reflects on how his father's disappearance shaped his own life, his worldview, his relationships, even his sense of self.
It really highlights the ripple effect of political violence, doesn't it? It doesn't just impact those directly involved, but it reaches across generations, leaving this mark on those who came after. The author's reflections, they show how these events can cause trauma that's passed down, shaping personal narratives and influencing the choices we make in really profound ways.
It's a sobering thought. It makes you realize that pursuing justice, it's not just about punishing those responsible. It's also about healing.
Yeah.
Healing the wounds of the past, both personal and collective, and creating a future that's more just, more compassionate.
It is. And in the middle of all this exploration of truth and justice, the author, he comes back to his mother, Eunice. Her Alzheimer's is progressing, and the book chronicles her decline, with honesty and compassion.
It's heartbreaking to see Eunice, this woman who was once so sharp, so vibrant. She's slowly losing her grasp on reality. The author shares these intimate moments. They're funny and heartbreaking.
Oh.
They capture the daily challenges of caring for someone with Alzheimer's.
It's a raw and unflinching look at the realities of the disease. It goes beyond those romanticized ideas of memory loss and really explores the impact it has on people, on their families. By sharing even the difficult parts of Eunice's decline, the author invites us to really engage with the complexities of the disease. It creates empathy, understanding for those who are facing its challenges.
We see Eunice, she's struggling with memory loss,
Hmm.
experiencing confusion, even lashing out at those closest to her. But even as the disease progresses, there are these glimpses of the strong, independent woman she always was.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even as our cognitive abilities fade, the essence of who we are, our personality, our values, they can still shine through. Those moments, those flashes of recognition, they must have been both comforting and heartbreaking for her family.
They were. And there's this one scene that's incredibly moving. Eunice, even with her advanced Alzheimer's, she recognizes her husband's name. She sees a news report about his case, and she becomes visibly emotional. It's like this little victory,
Okay.
amidst all the darkness. A reminder that even as the mind deteriorates, certain memories, certain connections, they can remain so strongly etched.
It's a testament to the enduring power of love, right? The depth of the bond she shared with her husband. It's a reminder that even facing this profound loss, this cognitive decline, the human spirit can hold on to these fragments of hope, of connection. It's
Yeah.
finding comfort in the memories that define us.
It is. It's a reminder that even as Eunice's mind is fading, her heart, it still remembers the man she loved and the fight for justice that really defined their lives.
Absolutely. And as Eunice's story unfolds, so does this larger story, right? Brazil's struggle to come to terms with its past. The book delves into this process of transitional justice, exploring the efforts to hold perpetrators accountable, to provide reparations for victims, and to foster reconciliation in a society that's still dealing with the wounds of the dictatorship.
It's a difficult process, messy, full of political obstacles and emotional complexities.
Hmm.
But the book doesn't shy away from that. It really dives into the debates,
Mm.
the debates surrounding the amnesty law, the law that granted pardon to both those who committed crimes during the dictatorship and those who fought against it.
That's a controversial issue for sure. Some people saw the amnesty law as necessary, a step towards a peaceful transition back to democracy, while others criticized it. They said it perpetuated impunity and denied victims their right to justice.
Exactly. The book looks at all these different perspectives. It gives a voice to those who believe in forgiveness and reconciliation and those who demand accountability for the crimes of the past.
It's a reminder that there are no easy answers when dealing with the legacy of these authoritarian regimes. Societies have to grapple with these complex moral and political questions. They're trying to balance the demands for justice, for peace, for stability.
And in Brazil's case, they're still grappling with it, even today. The author talks about the work of the Brazilian Truth Commission. It was established in 2011, to investigate the crimes of the dictatorship. He describes their efforts to gather testimonies, uncover evidence, and recommend reparations for victims and their families.
It's a big step, isn't it, towards acknowledging the past, holding people accountable, even decades later. The Truth Commission's work, it's crucial to fostering reconciliation,
Mhm.
building a more just and democratic society, even though it's a long and often a painful process.
Yeah, and while the Truth Commission represents this collective effort to confront the past, the author also highlights these individual stories, stories of courage, of resilience that came out of the dictatorship. He talks about the underground networks that supported political prisoners and their families, the secret meetings, the coded messages, and these small acts of defiance that helped keep hope alive.
It reminds us that even during the darkest times, the human spirit, it finds ways to resist oppression, to connect with others, to maintain a sense of dignity and agency. It's a testament to the power of collective action and the importance of solidarity when facing tyranny.
Absolutely. And those acts of resistance, big or small, they remind us that even in the most oppressive systems, hope and the possibility of change can endure.
And speaking of hope, the book also celebrates the strength and the vibrancy of Brazilian culture, even during those dark days.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even when things are tough, the human spirit can still find ways to express joy, creativity, and connection. The author, he talks about his love for Brazilian music, from samba to bossa nova, and how those songs provided comfort and escape during those difficult times.
It really shows the power of art and culture, right? To transcend boundaries, connect people, and offer solace, inspiration, and a shared sense of identity, especially during times of upheaval. Celebrating Brazilian music like that, it's a reminder of the enduring beauty and richness of the culture, even when facing oppression.
Right, and he even describes attending carnival, this explosion of color, music, dance, you know. a way to reclaim a sense of normalcy and joy in the middle of all the political turmoil.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? The resilience of the human spirit finding expression in the face of adversity. Carnival, it's like a collective act of defiance, against the regime trying to control, stifle expression. It's a reclaiming of public space, a celebration of life, community, and cultural identity.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can find ways to celebrate, to connect, and to find these moments of joy and hope. And it's a testament to the power of culture, of tradition, to provide solace and resilience in the face of adversity.
Beautifully said. And as the book comes to a close, the author returns to the present day. He's reflecting on this long journey he's taken, the journey to uncover the truth about what happened to his father and how it's all impacted his life, his family, and his understanding of his country's history.
It's a powerful way to bring it all together, his personal and historical exploration, a reckoning with the past, a celebration of resilience, and a call to action for the future.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? From a toddler's fascination with belly buttons to the complexities of political repression, memory, and justice. This deep dive has taken us on an emotional roller coaster, for sure.
It has. But it's a journey that leaves me feeling, well, both heartbroken and hopeful. Heartbroken by the atrocities, by the loss and suffering that Eunice and her family endured, but also hopeful that by confronting these difficult truths, by remembering those who are lost, and by continuing to fight for justice, we can create a world that's more just, more compassionate.
I couldn't agree more. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious. What resonated with you, our listener? What was insightful? What made you think? What questions, what reflections did this story spark in you?
That's a great question. And as you reflect on this incredible story, we'll leave you with one final thought. How can we ensure that personal stories like Eunice's aren't forgotten? How can we make sure they don't get lost, but instead become, catalysts for understanding, empathy, and positive change?
That's an important question. It gets to the heart of why these stories are so important to tell, to hear. It's a reminder that history, it's not just about dates and events, it's about the lives of the people who lived through those times. And by preserving those stories, sharing them, we can connect different generations. We can create empathy, and we can make sure that the lessons of the past aren't forgotten.
It makes you realize that everyone has a story, doesn't it? A unique perspective shaped by their experiences.
Yeah.
And by listening to those stories, by trying to see the world through someone else's eyes, we can broaden our own understanding and build a society that's more compassionate, more connected.
Absolutely. Eunice's story, it's a testament to the human spirit, the ability to endure, to find meaning and purpose, even in the face of unthinkable loss and hardship. It reminds us that while we can't change the past, we can learn from it. We can be inspired by the courage and resilience of those who came before us, and we can work to create a better future.
And speaking of the future, the book ends with a powerful call to action. It urges us to stay vigilant in the face of injustice, to speak out against oppression, and to never forget the human cost of tyranny.
It's a reminder that the fight for justice is never over. The pursuit of truth, of accountability, it requires constant vigilance, unwavering commitment. It's also a call for solidarity, recognizing that injustice anywhere, it's a threat to justice everywhere, and we all have a responsibility to stand up for the rights of others.
It's a message that goes beyond the specific context of Brazil's dictatorship. It's a universal message about the importance of memory, truth, and accountability in building a better world. It's a reminder that the fight for justice is ongoing, we can't become complacent, and that we all have a role to play in safeguarding human rights and making sure the mistakes of the past aren't repeated.
It's a powerful reminder that the choices we make today, the actions we take, or even the inaction we choose, it will shape the world we leave for future generations. Eunice's legacy is a call to action. It's a challenge for us to use our voices, our skills, our resources to create a world that's more just, more compassionate, a world where human rights are respected, diversity is celebrated, and the lessons of the past guide us towards a brighter future.
Well, I don't know about you, but I feel incredibly inspired ever diving into this story. It's a reminder that even in the darkest times, the human spirit can shine through. And even these small acts of courage, of kindness, they can make a difference.
It's been an honor to unpack this story with you. Eunice Paiva's life, it was a testament to the power of resilience, this unwavering pursuit of justice, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It's a story that's going to stay with me.
I hope it stays with our listeners as well. If you're looking for a story that will challenge you, inspire you, and stay with you long after you're done, highly recommend checking out both the book and the movie. They offer different but equally compelling perspectives on this multi-layered story.
And as you explore Eunice's story, think about this. How can you use your own unique voice, your own experiences, to advocate for positive change in your community and in the world around you? What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
That's a powerful question to consider, isn't it? It reminds us that we all have the potential to make a difference, to leave the world a better place than we found it. And by taking inspiration from stories like Eunice's, by learning from the past, and by embracing our shared humanity, we can create a future that's more just, more compassionate, and more hopeful for ourselves and for generations to come. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another fascinating exploration.